Earlier this year, one of my old NAS boxes blew its PSU. I wasn't worried because I had the array configured with 2 parity drives and I'd already moved over most of the data to a new NAS that I bought a few months earlier. So I rigged up a temporary PSU to the NAS and discovered that when that PSU had blown up, it zapped all 5 drives. They were dead. So in one instant, I lost my entire home automation system, all of my custom Node-RED dashboards for controlling the solar and battery charging, and all of the truly valuable assets that made CNCN run. To this day, I'm haunted by how an afternoon of setting up a backup solution could have protected me from a failure that I never really recovered from. Data protection means more than disaster recovery, though. You can also use backups in your business to increase the success rate of deploying apps in production. You can bring production snapshots into your CI pipeline and run your tests against real data without ever touching anything in production. No matter how you look at it, having a system for data protection is smart. Or if we look at it another way, not having that system in place, for whatever reason, exposes you to risks that you can't even imagine. I'm joined by Prashanto Kochavara from Trilio, and he's going to show us how to implement a data protection system using TrilioVault for Kubernetes. Now be sure to watch to the end of the video to learn how you can get some sweet Trilio swag. Let's get started. Prashanto, how you doing, man?
Hey Adrian, doing well, doing well. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, I hit on a couple of things that we can solve with TVK, but beyond backups and using data in the CI pipeline, what other things can TVK protect us from?
Well, if you think about it, data loss, data corruption, unavailability of your data, whether you hit disaster scenarios, security issues like ransomware, any kind of business risk operations, Trilio has you covered for all of those. And also, it's not a question of, if, it's always almost about when.
Yes, as I just as I just revealed, it is definitely a question of when. Trilio has more than TVK, though. What else does your company do?
So Trilio started off its journey by entering and supporting, workloads on OpenStack and virtualization, which Trilio is a leader in the space today. And now we have entered the Kubernetes market, and we are very excited to capture this market and provide valuable solutions around data management and data protection to Kubernetes users.
So what are we going to do today?
Well, it's an action-packed schedule. We are going to basically show how TrilioVault works. We are going to do an unpackaging. We're going to do a backup workflow with the user interface. We'll be showing how stateful applications work, and we'll also show you how you will recover yourself or recover your applications in a disaster scenario by moving applications across clusters, or in case of a disaster, moving it into another cluster.
Okay, we're starting this with Rancher Kubernetes Engine, RKE, and for the disaster recovery demo, we're going to restore into an Amazon EKS cluster. But in general, what's the bare minimum that somebody needs to start using TVK?
So currently, the bare minimum version of Kubernetes that we support is 1.18. That's with the 2.5 release that we recently made. And the other requirements that we have is you need to have a CSI driver, because we communicate with the underlying storage using CSI, and we also use CSI snapshots to take a point-in-time capture of the data, which we move into a backup repository so that everything happens very non-disruptively. And then finally, as I mentioned, a backup repository is also what you need, because that's where the data is going to be stored. So whether it is an S3 compatible interface or NFS or Blob or Google Cloud Storage, whatever is your choice, we have you covered.
All right. How do we get started?
So the first thing that we need to do is we will get into the RKE cluster and we'll install the storage driver. So for this exercise, what we'll do is we will install the HostPath driver, HostPath CSI driver. Now, HostPath is obviously not a production driver, but it's completely fine for evaluation and testing, and playing around with TrilioVault for Kubernetes. So what we've done is, the instructions, we've basically simplified it, super simplified it, and put it in our documentation page so that people can just, copy paste and everything gets deployed for them very, very quickly.
Okay. And for those of you who are watching, everything that we're doing today will be in a resources file so that you can follow along with all of the commands. You'll see me going over here and copying something and then pasting it over here. We'll make all of that available to you for you to do all of the same stuff. That'll be in the GitLab repo for the channel, which is, of course, going to be linked in the video description down below or wherever. All right, so we are here, and I just follow along with these steps.
Yes, absolutely. So first what we'll do is we will clone the CSI HostPath repository. After that, we will cd into the directory. We'll run some commands to make sure that the drivers are correctly installed. We will also create like a storage class and a volume snapshot class as part of that. And when once we've finished all of this, the environment prep around the storage piece is complete. And then we'll actually begin the Trilio installation.
Okay. So first I need to clone this repo. I should have done a shallow clone. It would have been faster. There will be moments in the video where things are happening and we will either have conversations or we will make sock puppets or... this is a big repo. All right, so while that's cloning, let's go look at what our next step is. We're going to cd into CSI Driver HostPath, deploy Kubernetes. Let's kcc-f Trilio prod. Let's connect to the right cluster. And oh, that's funny. I just saw that I created my nodes with I didn't type worker. I think I typed woker. They don't show up here. Yeah, prod woker. That's funny. Okay. You see me using the kcc command. That is the kubi project, which allows me to very quickly switch between Kubernetes contexts. And what you just saw there with RKE is it's asking me, do I want to connect through Rancher or do I want to connect directly to one of the RKE nodes? I'm choosing to go through Rancher, and we are here. So let's cd into CSI. Okay, get -o wide. I believe we're running 1.21. Yep. So cd CSI driver HostPath. Whoops, let's go back to the docs. Deploy Kubernetes 1.21. Okay. And I should probably change my shell to bash for this. So just install all the CRDs? Okay.
So this will install the V1 Beta 1 CRDs. We've also provided the V1 CRDs because you need the V1s on certain versions after 1.20, I believe. So which is provided both, and it's useful and safe to install both at the same time.
Okay. Oops. Oh, yeah. Bash versus fish. All right. Let's just jump into bash really quick. Export. Let's get that ugliness off the screen. Export snapshot version equals 2.01. And let's paste all of these. And okay. CRD's going in.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, so then what we've also done is we've provided a file with all the V1 version of the CRDs. So let's install those as well. We can download it locally and then run a kubectl apply on it.
Okay. Can I just copy this link address and like get it? It seems like a crazy link. Let's try.
I believe so. I haven't tried it, but
okay.
That's a shot.
curl-o v1. Let's see. Let's get out of this directory. Curl-o v1 crd.yaml. And that's fish again. I really like the fish shell, but well, it doesn't always work. kapply-f. Let's actually look at that, make sure that we got what we were expecting. Looks like we did. kapply-f v1 crd yaml. Nice. All right. Run
Just
the shell
one thing
script.
before you run the deploy command, just make sure that you're in the default namespace. That's a hard requirement for HostPath driver for some reason.
Oh,
So just make sure that
yes.
we are in that.
Okay. So we'll cd back to the directory that I was in. So for example, one of the things that's wonderful about Fish is you can just Alt and then go left and right arrow, and it like moves you back through directories. I am in the default namespace, so there we go. Stuff is happening. Do you ever find that working with like cloud computing and Kubernetes, well, you've probably been doing computing stuff for a while. Does it feel like magic when you're doing this stuff? Do you feel like a wizard?
When
I do.
things work, yes, definitely.
Oh, come on. You know that
Yeah,
wizards could cast spells and they blow up castles and stuff like that.
exactly. I mean, yeah, I think Kubernetes is so much fun. Especially because you have so much granular control over what you want to do.
Yeah.
I've always liked CLI, so definitely right up my alley. So it's very enjoyable for me.
This stuff makes me happy. Like I used to do software development, but from the system administration perspective, and it was always about building things that kind of like cloned myself to perform certain functions from an automation perspective. But then I also really liked like building things and then just kind of turning them loose. And they like the bots that I've built that do things. They're almost like it's like they're alive. Just what we can do. I'm like a child. I am never ever bored with technology.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's now create a storage class for HostPath. And are these steps that everybody will have to follow, or is these steps that we're just using because we're using HostPath today to keep things simple?
These are steps we are using just to keep things simple by using a HostPath driver, which you can basically run on any cluster. But obviously, when you're running in production, you do not want to use HostPath because HostPath is not meant for production. You want to use, for example, if you're running something like RKE, you want to make sure that you're using a solid CSI driver like or solid storage like Longhorn. And then, when we're going to do the disaster recovery piece, EKS, because it's Amazon, you should be using the EBS CSI driver.
Right.
So those are the production grade ones. This is just, quickly getting up to speed and, playing around with the Trilio console and understanding how the product works.
If somebody wanted to deploy this directly into a production environment, where would they find the other types of well, I guess I'm not even sure what I'm asking here. If they're deploying into a production environment and they're not going to do HostPath, can they just skip all of this and go right to the deploying Trilio part, or are there other things that they would need to install instead from Trilio?
So if they already have a storage class or a CSI storage class and a snapshot class, then they don't need to do anything more. They can just ignore these steps. If you do not want to play around with stateful application and just want to do stateless, you do not need to install the HostPath piece either. So you have different options, but let's say if you want to deploy one of the production grade drivers, there is a list. We also maintain that on our website,
Okay.
just under where you saw the HostPath instructions. A list of the CSI drivers that are available today. It's constantly and continuously updated by the Kubernetes community. So if you have storage and you're wondering, hey, does my storage support CSI? You can get that information from there.
Okay. All right, so we have all of that installed. Are we ready to move on to the testing, or do we need to skip this? Should we skip this?
We can skip this.
Okay.
I think we should be good in terms of the volumes getting created and so on. I think we can move on to installing Trilio now.
All right. So for that, it looks like I need crew.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we've done is we have provided a one-click procedure. The one-click procedure is again on our documentation. If you scroll all the way down, there is a link called one-click, and the one-click procedure basically installs Trilio, configures it, deploys the backup repository, does everything, basically does everything for you, and make sure that you have a system that you can readily play with. So, any kind of installation configuration jargons, we're kind of taking that away from you.
For those of you who are watching, when Prashanto and I were setting this up, we went through both options. We went through the individual line by line, step by step, because I wanted to understand all of the pieces that are involved. And then he told me about the one-click thing. The one-click's so totally the way to go. It does everything you need it to do to get you to the point where you need to be, which is being able to use it. You don't want to get bogged down in those intermediate steps. It's supremely convenient. Once again, I should have done a shallow clone. But that's okay. All right, so I have Crew installed. If you don't have Crew installed, or if you're not familiar with Crew, again, for those of you who are watching, Crew is a plugin system for kubectl. So you can install Crew, and then it opens the door to all of these plugins to do all sorts of other things directly within kubectl. In our case, we're going to use it to install some stuff into our Kubernetes cluster once this repo continues trickling down. I have symmetrical gigabit fiber now. I think GitHub has a problem here. GitHub's like, we're going to put you on the dial-up side of things.
That's most probably the case.
All right, cool. So let's cd into this, and there we have some stuff. We have a manifest YAML file, and we have an archive. So the next command that I will deploy, the next command that I will run is this, which is going to be kubectl crew install. We're going to point it at the manifest, and then we're going to point it at the archive. And when I run this, Prashanto, what's actually happening? Oh gosh, that was really fast. I just installed a plugin.
Yeah, because it was available locally, I think I just took that and ran with it. So what is happening is we have created this plugin which does the one-click install for you, and now that plugin has been made available as a kubectl extension on your system. So to run the plugin, you would just run kubectl, name of the plugin, which is tvk one-click. So there we go. Awesome. So yeah, now tvk one-click is installed, and like you see on the options, right, there is obviously the help that we are looking at. Whatever we do today can be done in a completely non-interactive fashion by having a config file that this plugin will read from, and just install everything in one click. However, for the purpose of this exercise, we'll go step by step. Install the product, we'll configure the management console, we'll deploy a target, we'll do a sample test as well.
All right, so the next step is to run tvk one-click-i, which is tvk one-click-i. And are there any additional prerequisites that they'll need to have installed before they can run this?
Well, you need crew, kubectl, we need yq and s3 command, which is all available on our website on the one-click page. So you can just click on those links and it'll take you to the place where you need to download it from for your operating system.
Okay. All right. So what we're 2.5, right? You guys just came out with 2.5?
2.5.0, yes, that's okay. Right. And generally our operator and a manager are always in sync. In case there are bug fixes and patches, then it'll be 2.5.1, 2.5.2 and so, but this will be 2.5.0.
Default,
you can say yes.
Okay. All right, installing the operator.
So what this is going to do now, it's obviously installing the operator. The operator manages instances of TrilioVault. So technically, you could, right now we're installing TrilioVault at the cluster level, so it's available throughout the cluster, but technically you could just have this operator create TrilioVault instances in separate namespaces. So, let's say you just want specific users to be doing some data management, data protection, and just have TrilioVault in a few namespaces, you can do that as well.
Okay, so now it looks like it's installed everything, but it's asking me for a password. What's that?
Yes, so what we've done, normally users would have to go to our website, request a license, and then they apply it. But this one-click plugin is going and picking up a license and directly applying that to your cluster. So you just need to provide your passwords because it's going to go and apply it into the cluster, and it's go over the internet and get some things.
Wait, what password? My sudo password or like?
Just your laptop password. It's asking
Oh,
permissions that, hey, can it apply the free license?
interesting. So you took my password and you sent that off to.
Yep, we'll be getting into your system soon.
That's right. Uh,
That should be fine. That message, you can
okay,
ignore
yeah,
that.
it's just a Python error and then some pop up of something. Okay, so that's done. Let's move on to the next step.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the next step is again TBK one click, and this time you can do a -C, which is
Okay,
going to configure the management console.
all right.
We can use Notepad to
Okay.
access the management console.
So when people are following along with this, they can choose if they want to have Kubernetes deploy a load balancer for them, a node port where they can either connect to the node port directly or put their own load balancer in front of it. And then I guess port forwarding is going to do what? Use it as a cluster IP, and they can just do port
Yeah,
forwarding to access it.
absolutely. So the way you look at it is quick and dirty access port forwarding. If you want to, do a little bit more security, go through a node port, and then want to do it like an enterprise, do it as a load balancer.
Okay.
And here we can call this tvkrqe dot prod dot cncn.io.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So for those following along, this hostname that you've chosen is the hostname that you'll use to access the UI, but we're going to show you a different way to do it that's actually, I think, much cooler. But if you're just playing in an environment, it gives you an entry that you can put into your etc host file that just grabs one of the IPs off of one of the hosts in your cluster. So you would just put that in here, exactly like you see we already have one from before. And that will give you access to the UI on that URL right there. All right, so the next step is to make the target, right?
That is right. So we have two options. We can either use the one click to continue with the target creation, or we can, basically jump into the management console and,
Oh,
understand how to create it from the management console through some click-driven interfaces.
yeah, let's do that. Let's show the UI. So for that, you just need to go here. Here?
Mm-hmm.
Just
And you may
thinking.
need to, sometimes you may need to add a /login in front before the port number.
All right, there we go. Give it the kube config.
Yep, you can sign the kubeconfig. So we just need to browse to the file on your laptop. So we can use the broad one,
Okay.
and you can sign in.
Oh, well, look at that. Let's see if I can make that
Mm-hmm.
bigger. Can I make that bigger?
Yeah.
I can make it a little bigger. That's about as big as it's going to get. All right, so we are now looking at our installation of TrilioVault running in our Kubernetes cluster. This is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice UI.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, we've put in a lot of thought into this management console. We have your multi-cluster management on the left. You have your, applications, whether you deal with applications as namespaces or actual label-based, element-based, operator-based. The center screen is for selection and understanding what's protected, what's not. And then when you move on to the right, it's all context-driven. You select one thing, it will tell you the backup summary, restore summary, and any kind of restore points. Right now, we haven't created anything over here, so we don't have any data. But to put rubber to the road, Adrian, I think what we could do now is we could actually, create a namespace, deploy an application, like stateful application like MySQL into it, and then we can do a backup and then restore locally as well as restore into the EKS cluster. And now, before we do that, we can actually demonstrate the multi-cluster management feature as well. So if you want, we can actually go into the EKS cluster and add this RKE cluster that we have right now deployed into that EKS management pane.
So you don't need to act. So even though you're installing TrilioVault into multiple Kubernetes clusters, you can control all of them from one of them.
That is absolutely right.
That's amazing. That's so smart.
Hmm.
Do we need to add a target before we go and do that, or can we do all of that from over there
We can do all of that in the main
in the EKS
main
cluster?
console where you have all
Okay.
your clusters. Yeah.
All right. So that one is TVK EKS, right?
Hmm. And that one, if you remember, we had, or the way it was set up is via load balancer. And the authentication for this one is, you can use your, we have OIDC LDAP authentication as well. So for this one, we won't use kubeconfig. We'll send through our Google accounts.
Okay. And there we go. We are now logged into TrilioVault running on the EKS cluster. So if you remember from the beginning of this, where we talked about what we were going to do, we have an EKS cluster and we have an RKE cluster. We deployed into the RKE cluster, and we're going to deploy an application there. We're going to make a backup of it. We're going to do a restore, and then we're going to simulate a disaster by restoring that application into the EKS cluster using TVK. So now we've logged into the EKS cluster, and Prashanto is going to show me how to attach the RKE cluster so that I can control them both from the same UI. How do I do that?
So if you see on the left-hand side, you have the cluster navigation. There is a plus button over there. So that
Okay.
means add. Now you can give this name. You can call this RKE prod. In terms of the URL, now this is the same URL that you had initially used to log in. So that would be, what was it? TBK RKE prod,
Prod, yeah. Do I need the
and then login
do I
as
need
well.
slash login?
Slash login in front of the colon. Yeah.
Okay, so this still freaks me out. When Prashanto and I were going through this yesterday, like I'm old school. You have protocol, host, colon, port, slash, path. And that doesn't work anymore. I don't know why that doesn't work. And Prashanto was like, oh, just put the full path and then colon port. And I'm like, there's no way. And he's like, trust me. And I did it and it works. If any of you know when that changed, please let me know. Because I feel like I'm like Sleeping Beauty or something and I just woke up and the world is different. All right. Back on track here. Do I select Rancher because it's RKE?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. And I give it the kubeconfig again, right?
That is right.
So that's RKE prod and add. Wow.
So if you think about it, what we basically kind of did was an out-of-box installation, and then we came to our main console and added the new cluster that we have configured.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. So we can just give it like a few, I would say, take some time to load all the information from the cluster. So it's processing everything, talking to the Rancher environment. So we can just give it about probably a minute to put in all the information that it needs to.
Whenever I'm teaching my wife how to do something and I'm like explaining to her, okay, so you're going to go here and you're going to click that. And she goes and clicks it. And I'm like, no, don't click it yet. I just did that. I'm like, oh, look, there it is. Click. And it's like, oh, error.
Time to refresh.
So now when I'm teaching her, I'm like, okay, don't click anything yet. But in a moment, you're going to do this. And she's like, I'm going to click it all. So how long does it take to load everything?
Depends upon the number of namespaces and everything that are there in the cluster. So what we start doing is we start caching some of the information so that it's faster processing. Mm-hmm. So it just depends upon how big your cluster is, how many objects it is. Like basically think about your etcd database and the size of it, and it's directly proportional to that.
Okay, that makes sense. Of course, because everything in Kubernetes is stored in etcd except the data. But yeah, if you're pulling all the cluster information, it's out of etcd. All right. Can I click it again?
I think.
Can I?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I saw that error message.
If it's a brand new cluster, it shouldn't take more than like about 10 seconds. But like let's say we actually had one cluster where the customer had almost 300-400 namespaces. I don't even know how that was possible. Like it was just like so yeah, we had to extend our limits as part of that. So it was a good stress test in a way.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's next?
So now that we are here, what we can do is we can go to the Trilio website. We have some, great examples for stateful applications that we can quickly deploy and do a backup and recovery on.
Examples page or somewhere else?
So if you go to the Getting Started page
Okay.
on the left,
Yep.
and if you go now to the extreme right and the right part, yeah, there'll be a label example below.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just copy that file,
All right.
create a new namespace and run it. It will deploy MySQL for you
Okay.
with a persistent volume.
Okay. All right, looks good. Let's call this MySQL. Oh, I have one person who watches the videos, and he pointed out to me that it's not MySQL, it's MySQL. But I've been saying MySQL for like 20 years. So
Same
every
here.
time now I
It's
say
too
MySQL,
difficult.
yeah, I'm like, well, it's MySQL. MySQL. Okay, so
Yeah.
ns MySQL, kapply-f, sample app, cast the wizard spell. Application created.
And Adrian, what we could also do is if you want to create the restore namespace now itself and we want to restore it, we can do that too.
Okay, so just create a namespace that we're going to restore it into.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll call this MySQL-restore.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to make a backup, and then we're going to restore it into that other namespace on the same cluster before we do the migration or the disaster recovery.
Right. Yep.
Okay. All right, that's up and running. Can't spell service. Okay. Cool.
And we can just confirm that the PVC was deployed correctly. I mean, the pods came up, so I'm pretty confident the PVC did get deployed. Yep.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they are. Using the HostPath storage class. Nice.
Mm-hmm. And now we are ready to perform a backup.
Okay.
So
Let's do it.
So now what you'll do is you will you'll unselect the hexagon that's selected for you, and you can select the MySQL.
Right? I just ruined it for you, didn't I? I'm sorry.
now I'm like conscious.
Yeah.
Okay,
Every time I say
backup.
MySQL, I think of that guy, and I'm like, ah. Okay. So
Okay. So now that you clicked on MySQL, you see the create backup button got activated.
okay.
So you can click on that. You can say create new backup.
Okay.
And first we create a backup plan. So a backup plan is basically the definition of where you're capturing this application or namespace and putting it, and how often do you want to capture it, and how long do you want to retain it for. So all that information, we call that a backup plan. So
Okay.
now you're saying MySQL, we're going to put that into a plan, saying the MySQL is going to go into a target. So this is the target where we'll create it on the fly now.
So new target, object store,
Mm-hmm.
AWS, bucket name, we're using demo bucket 25. Region is US West 1.
That is right.
Do I need a URL?
Generally, we put like the s3.amazon.com. So you can just add that in.
.com, okay. Object locking?
Object locking, not yet. I mean, we don't have object locking on this bucket. So we do have immutable backup feature, but we're not doing that in this.
Okay.
And then for the object store credentials, we will create a secret. So we automatically take your credentials, convert that to a secret, and store it on the system.
Okay. AWS creds. Let me get this super secret demo key from, oh, I suspected that didn't actually copy what I wanted it to, because that was, there we go. This copying and pasting between Macs that's also wizardry. Okay. Oh, nice. And actually, this is great. They don't even get to see the keys. We made these demo keys because we were expecting that we'd have to like paste them, but yeah, they're nicely hidden. We don't need a certificate because this is fine. So create.
So actually, before that, what do you want? Can we look at the URL again? I think we need to put https://s3.amazonaws.com, I believe.
HTTPS. What's the rest of it?
https:///
Yep.
s3.amazonaws.com.
Okay. Now we'll go back to create a secret. AWS creds. Access key. Nope. It does have to go through iCloud for some reason or something. I'm not actually sure what. There we go. Paste, create. No, I don't want to save the password. Thank you, browsers. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Go away. How about enable browsing? Do we want to turn that on?
Not on this one. We need enable browsing on the EKS side because that's where we're going to do the DR story. Okay. And that's where you want to make sure that you can get into the backup repository and pick up items to restore.
Okay, so I can click continue for now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, threshold capacity. I missed that. Let's do 100 gigs. Now I can say continue.
Mm-hmm.
Target name.
Anything. Demo target is also fine. Demo target 25.
I'll say MySQL target. You know what? I'm just going to keep saying MySQL. Viewer who hates that I say MySQL instead of MySQL, I apologize. I'm just broken. And so there it is. All right. MySQL plan, MySQL target. I'm going to say them both. Tell me about hooks.
So hooks are basically your way of interacting with the application. So let's suppose you wanted to do an application consistent backup with MySQL. Mm-hmm. You can add a hook, which is basically a regex into a pod, into a container. So you can provide a regular expression for the pod and the container mapping. And we will go and execute commands on that container for you. So whether it is a command to quiesce the database, or whether it is a command to maybe just run some kubectl commands and move something somewhere. You want to just delete something after you do a restore. Maybe you want to delete the source. You can do everything as part of it.
That sounds like a handy feature.
Mm-hmm. And then imagine what you have.
Go ahead.
What you have in front of you is basically scheduling policy. So this defines how frequently do you want to capture the application. We do full captures as well as incremental captures. When you do a full capture, everything after that is an incremental capture. And every time you take a full capture, it resets that full and incremental chain. So it's very efficient because we can do forever incrementals without any issues on usage of capacity or no performance hits at all.
So let's do a weekly full and a nightly incremental.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll run that Sunday at midnight. That sounds fine. And then an incremental. Let's create a new one. Daily. And we'll say OK. All right, so we got weekly full, daily incremental.
Mm-hmm.
And then do we need a retention policy?
Yeah, we can just say, retain the last 5 backups or something so that we don't want to run out of space. I mean, not that we run out of space on the S3, but we should be cognizant of costs as well.
We'll certainly run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got retention policy, scheduling policy, plan name, target. Can I say next?
Yep, absolutely.
Now we're on to a resource selector.
Correct. So if you wanted to pick out granular items or exclude granular items from the namespace that you don't want. Let's say if there were multiple big PVCs, but you were just interested in smaller PVCs, you can use these independent resource, inclusions, exclusions. This is a very powerful feature because if you had, let's say, a secret in another namespace and you wanted to include that, we allow you to do that too. So it may be like one namespace plus a couple of objects from the other namespace.
Okay. But for our purposes today, we don't need those.
We don't need it. Yeah.
Create.
Yep. Create. And we should ask you for, or it's going to basically validate, or actually it's already validated. Now we'll ask you for a name for the point in time capture.
So is this just for this backup, or is this like a permanent name that it'll use going
So
forward?
what it'll do is it will use that name and then it will append a string to it in terms of like a randomly generated string, mostly based on the time that the backup is happening
Okay.
for all the subsequent captures.
All right. So we'll just call it MySQL.
Mm-hmm. What does the error message say?
It said we need a license.
The license should have been applied.
The license was supposed to be applied as part of the one-click install, right?
That is right.
Okay. Well, if that doesn't happen, how do we apply that manually?
So you can go to the Trilio website and you can request a license. You'll get an email. You can click the license link and it will send you, or it will give you a file that you apply onto the system.
Okay. So just Trilio.io, free trial.
That is right.
Okay. And download now. Fill out a bunch of information. That's it. This is a trick, right? You want my email address. You want me to opt in so that so you can send me your marketing stuff.
That is
Job
right.
title. CNCN. I need a title for CNCN. I'm just going to be CNCN. Company name. CNCN. Corporate email. Oh, really? You're not going to let me use my Gmail address? All right.
Well, we need corporate ones.
Okay, anybody who knows my first and last name and knows I work at SUSE can figure out my email address. The rest of this, though, you don't get. I wonder if you guys will let me. Well, I'll give you my phone number, Prashanto, but I'm not giving it to the internet. You can ask me for my address too. Blood type.
Everything.
Kubernetes distribution.
Everything, my friend.
GitHub username. Wow. Will you let me not?
The GitHub username is because we add you to an issue tracker directly in case you have any issues, so you can directly fill that out.
Okay. I'll participate. Submit. All right, please check your email. So for this part, I'm going to go back to the Zoom chat where it's just you and me while I go and check my email so that people can't see like all the messages from my mom being like, you never come over and talk to me, which is actually not true. My mom lives a mile away from me right now. And for those of you who are wondering, she's still hard at work knitting her service mesh. Here. All right, so we jumped back. I had to go check my email to get the link to generate a license, which now I'm going to enter here. And
here, basically you enter your kube system UID. So if you just do a kubectl get ns kube system OYAML, you will find the UID at the bottom. Just plug it in and you'll get the license file.
Okay, get ns kube system -OYAML. UID. This is good. I'm glad we went through this. Generate license. Okay. So I can copy this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a Kubernetes
YAML
manifest. So
file.
we can come back over here, pv paste, license.yaml, nk apply-f, license.yaml, and, oh, I'm in the wrong namespace. And as default.
Mhm.
Nice. That's
And if
cool.
you
You
want
have
to just
a,
validate,
I was going to say, it's cool you have an admission webhook that actually does the validation of the license when it
mm-hmm.
goes in.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
So if you want to do like just a confirmation, you can do a kubectl get license, and it should show you.
Ha! Look at that.
Well, so maximum nodes you can use up to 1,000. Just wait.
Woohoo! Definitely going to run out of money. Okay, so with the license applied, now we're back over here. I should be able to still, I
Mm-hmm.
should just be able to click create backup and we should be good, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my speculation is that the license did not get applied the first time. Maybe it wasn't able to get the right permissions to into the system to apply it. So because of which we had to do this. I've seen that happen a couple of times, but most of the times it goes through.
Well, I'm glad it happened because if it
Mm-hmm.
happened to anybody who was watching, then like it's good that we can show them how to go generate it manually.
Absolutely.
So what's it
Okay,
doing right now?
so what happens when we trigger off a capture? We first have a meta mover pod that spins up. And actually, we can actually observe all of this in the namespace if you want to kind of look at the CLI as well. But what happens, the MetaMove pod comes up, it captures all the API objects, talks to the API server, HCD, and gets all those objects, uh, puts it in a JSON format into the target, which is the AWS target. And then we end up doing a data upload. We'll first snapshot the data volume. So we'll use the snapshot capability, and then we'll take that volume and convert it to a new PV, then move the data into the target. So now you have your JSON format YAML manifest as well as your data volumes. And that completes the capture then.
Sounds very efficient.
Mhm. And what we can do when we are doing the restore, right? We can do a local restore as well as a DR restore at the same time, because both
Oh,
will be going with different clusters.
okay. That's fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to see in the UI more information about what's going on here, or just
So what you could do
these little
is you can
things?
actually close this out, and you can click on the summary now, backup summary details. And if you click on that actions and say view details of view YAML, the YAML file will have more information in the status showing you what is exactly going on. So if you see the backup object YAML and you scroll down, and the status will tell you, what it's exactly doing and if it's encountering any issues or anything of that sort.
My wife comes into my room sometimes, and I'm staring at YAML files or scrolling through them like this, and she just it's like I'm in the Matrix, when they're just staring at the stuff. It's exactly the same to her. I guess it makes total sense to me, and she just shakes her head. Let's see what's in view details. Okay, so view
So in
details is what
view,
we were seeing before.
correct, and it will show you all the summary of the plan itself. It will show you the metadata summary, all of that information.
Okay. Nope, data upload completed. While this is happening, do you want to show me anything else in the UI?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things. Everyone must be aware of a open source tool known as Velero. So if you see
Yep.
on the left-hand side panel, what we do is we automatically, I mean, if there's no Velero in your
Sure.
cluster, there's nothing. But if there was Velero running in your cluster as well, we will automatically provide you a management console for those Velero backups so that you can keep a tab on those captures, your backups, restores, your backups, locations, and everything as you migrate to Trilio. So, making sure that migration is easy for you, you don't lose track of what you already have, and when you move to a proprietary solution. Um, the resource management tab is basically, managing all your backup locations, your backup plans, your hooks, your policies. If you want to share them across clusters, those three dots on the extreme right, that allows you to clone it. So if you want to clone it into another cluster, so let's say we are in the RKE cluster and we want to clone it into EKS cluster, you can do that as well. So that it's single source of management, and you don't have to keep recreating things everywhere.
That's really
And then
nice.
finally, we have the disaster recovery plan menu. Now, as the name suggests, disaster recovery basically allows you to create a plan specifying these are the different applications that I've captured from this backup location, another backup location. You put it all together, you construct a plan for your minimal viable business recovery. Okay. And then once you've constructed that, when the disaster happens, you execute and it will go recreate your environment somewhere else, wherever you point it to.
That's So that's really smart. There's when dealing with backups, I know that a lot of people make backups and they never test restoring until they need to restore, and then they're like, oh, the backups were corrupted, or the system stopped making backups, 6 months ago, or there's something. So testing your backups regularly is important. But it sounds like you guys have gone one step further, because people talk about having a disaster recovery plan. I mean, that might be in a wiki on the server that just died. So having an actual implementation that somebody can just go and click is probably really good for situations where people might be panicking, or they might be under stress, or trying to get things back up quickly, and not actually able to create the steps in the moment to do something. That's really nice
That's a
that you
great
guys.
point. That's a great point, Adrian. Yeah, when things are not working well, stress gets the best of you, and yeah, having this pre-created plan will definitely help.
All right, it looked like our backup completed.
Yep, it should have.
Excellent. Okay, so let's
Now you
do
can
our
see,
fancy. Okay, well, you tell me. What are we doing next?
we can actually click on the backup detail, or we can restore it from here, or we can look at the backup details. We also show you in the metadata everything that we have captured as part of the backup. So you can go there, you look at view details, and then it should pop up a metadata tab on the right. You'll see all the objects that we've captured. If you dive deeper, you can see view details, and it'll show you all of that. If you have target browsing enabled, we don't have it over here, but you could view the YAML of these files as well. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we will restore this into the same cluster, and we'll restore it into the EKS cluster as well. So to restore into the same cluster, you have a local reference to the backup. So, we can just take that backup you see under restore points.
Yep, okay.
Just below that. Yep. The MySQL backup you see.
Yep.
You can click on that and then click on restore. And you can provide that a name.
Again, is this a permanent name? Is this just a name for one time? Do I need to really think about what I'm naming it here?
So this is a one-time restore, right? Back because you don't have a policy-based restore, which kind of is something that we're working on as well. But this is a one-time, so just a one-time name you provide. Skip if exists. What we do is we capture dependent resources as well. So if you're capturing, like let's say we found the persistent volume claim and the PV, we will also go capture the storage class because you may need it. But here you can decide, hey, if the storage class from a cluster scope resource already exists, you can skip it. But let's say if you wanted to patch it, you have the option to patch it as well.
Oh, I see. Those are mutually exclusive. Okay.
Correct. So either you skip or you patch. So if you're just worried about your metadata, I already have metadata running over there. What's going to happen to it? Okay, you can skip it. Oh, there is metadata. I want to change it. Patch it.
Cool.
Okay.
So skip if exists. That sounds fine. And then next?
Yep. Next is good. Now here, what we allow you to do is, clusters are different, and generally, now we are going into the same cluster. So we shouldn't have an issue in case, let's say there was a service port conflict or something like that, right? That would cause an issue in the validation because you cannot have two node ports on the same
Yep.
pod.
Sure.
So if you wanted to transform anything of that, you can do it here. For this MySQL application, I'm not sure if we need to, but we can give it a shot.
Okay.
Similarly, exclusions allow you to, if you just say exclude, you can click on that. And you'll see all the metadata again, and you can just click on the objects that you don't want.
Okay.
And yeah, and we'll automatically, like it's the GVK and all the subsequent objects we'll pick out for you.
Okay.
And then finally, hooks. There are hooks during the captures and there are hooks during restores because you never know what you may want to touch upon after the restore is complete. So for this exercise, we're not doing anything at the moment. We can just click next and, hopefully there's no node code conflict, which I don't believe there is. And there is a validation step that we do anyways. So that'll let us know soon if it fails or what.
So it would actually fail during validation. It wouldn't actually try the restore and then fail with half of the objects created.
Correct. First, we do a validation. We'll check, hey, whatever Adrian is doing, is that logical? Is that feasible? We'll make sure. If it is, then we will let you proceed. And if it is not, we will fail.
Okay.
So we actually have introduced a lot of fail-safe mechanisms to make sure that people don't do things which are detrimental to the R cluster. Yeah, so be proud of that. Okay.
Looks like we're out of the woods. Validation completed.
Yeah. So now this should complete. Hopefully, what we'll do is let's go into the other cluster.
Okay.
EKS cluster. And here, now we are in a separate cluster than the RKE one. So what we'll need to do, we don't have a reference to the backup. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to go into the backup location or the target. So if you click on resource management on the left blue ribbon, and you click on the targets tab, which is pretty much in the middle of the screen.
Yep.
And you need to select the default namespace. So targets are namespace scoped. So if you see your namespaces on the left, you need to select the default one.
Got it.
Do you see the target over there? Or did we create in the TVK namespace? I believe it was in TVK one. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You're right.
Browsing is already enabled on that. So you can click on the three dots on the right again. And is the browsing enabled or does it show disabled?
Disabled.
Oh, okay. So then let's enable it.
And browsing, when we enable browsing, what does that mean exactly?
So what's happening behind the scenes is there is a pod that is being launched. And that pod basically mounts the S3 target as a volume. And then we basically give you access into the S3 device to basically visually see what's there, where are your backups, what are your different backup plans, and so on.
Okay.
So now, basically, what has happened is we are not even concerned about or not even looking at the RKE cluster. We are assuming that the RKE cluster is not available, and we want to do a DR kind of a scenario.
Mm-hmm. Okay, browsing is enabled. What next?
Awesome. So now, you can click on the three dots, and I think that's a message for what's happening on the other cluster as well. Our restore probably completed, I think.
Cool.
But we can click on Launch Browser over here. And it should show you all the captures that we had. So we should be seeing the MySQL plan, I believe, or which one was it?
No, that was it. MySQL plan. That's the one we created. MySQL.
Okay. Yep. Now we can restore this into the EKS cluster. We can follow the same procedure. I think on this one, I think I created a namespace called as restore DR or DR restore.
DR restore. Yep, there we go.
Yep, that's the one.
And looks like the options are the same. Skip if exists versus patch if exists. We'll do skip and go next.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to
Same
transform
options.
anything. Yep.
Yeah, so here it would have been very interesting. Let's say if you were going from Longhorn to EBS, you could actually use a transform to change the storage class.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that's super
We could
useful.
also Yeah, you can also change the storage class in a local cluster. Let's say you have a fast performing SSD tier storage class and a low performing. You want to change something from low performing to fast performing. You can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So while this is validating, Adrian, we can look at the other restore that completed by going to the home tab. I think that was in the RKE cluster.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right, RKE cluster. Sorry.
And now you see there's a one backup, one restore successfully done. And
Yeah.
we can click on the details, restore summary, and actions and new details. And now same stuff, right? Because what was the restore summary? What was the metadata? Because you could have excluded items,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we are also, I think we probably already have this, or we are probably introducing this in the next release. You will be able to compare the metadata of your backup and your restore together, the YAML files together, everything.
That's nice. So like a diff of what was backed up versus what was restored to see, that everything is
Correct.
consistent, or
So
if anything changed,
today
what it
we already
was.
support, today we already support, if you select one backup, another backup, and you say compare YAMLs, it will compare all the Trilio YAMLs as well as the application YAMLs.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the restore completed. The pod should be up and functional in that namespace.
Yeah, I should be able to come over here and I'm just gonna start spelling everything out. MySQL RESTORE.
RESTORE.
Yeah. Look at that. That's great.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yep. 2 PVs in the different namespaces. Huh. I love it when a plan comes together. So let's
So
check
now
on
what we
our
should, yeah,
check on the EKS one.
yeah, let's go there. There you go. See the restore summary. Because we haven't selected anything on the center of the screen, it's showing you the backup restore summary for the entire cluster because we did not have a restore before. We just did one restore, so it's corresponding to the restore we just did.
Okay. So it looks like we have nothing in here. Where can I see the current?
So if you go to if you unselect that and you click on restore summary
Click on
on the
restore
right
summary.
in the right hand side panel details. Yep.
Okay.
And there you go. That's your restore, and then you click on new details, restore summary, and then the metadata summary, everything in there.
Oh, so it's done. It's all there.
Yeah, and we can, again, if you want to check on the CLI on this EKS cluster, hopefully none of the pods are crashing, but there was some resource issue on this one, but I'm pretty confident it should all be fine.
Awesome.
There you go.
Wow.
Whether it was migration, disaster recovery, or whatever you call it, mobility, test dev, copy test data management, you have full control. No matter the Kubernetes distribution, no matter the storage that you're using, no matter the cloud you are in, you can move your applications as if it was a single fabric with Trilio.
So what we did today was the first step in protecting data in a Kubernetes cluster. I mean, clearly this is powerful, but we've barely scratched the surface of what TVK can do. Where can people go to take the next step?
So I would suggest that folks should definitely check out our example section in our documentation guide, because that example section has a ton of different scenarios that it covers in terms of doing NFS targets, S3 targets, immutable targets or backups that you want to create, application specific information, whether it's backups for MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, and I would say we have a plethora of databases that are captured and covered. So it basically educates, teaches you how to use the Trilio platform, and then we also have a lot of examples on doing label-based backup, namespace-based backup, Helm-based backups, operator-based backups, and the Helm and the operator piece is something very, very unique to Trilio. That's one of our major differentiators, and it's patented technology as well, the way we do it.
Yeah, I see there's a ton of stuff in here. So I'll put a link to this page in the video description. Remember, those of you who are watching, we're both at KubeCon right now. It's like mind-blowing. I'm here, I'm there, we're everywhere. So please, come by the booths and say hello. The last in-person KubeCon was a lifetime ago. If you're there, mask up, come say hi. Tell us that you saw the video. Take a socially distanced selfie with us or something. Prashanto, are you guys giving away swag at your booth?
Yes, it's KubeCon, so there will always be swag. In fact, we are also having a party for KubeCon attendees.
Yes, there is a party. There's a registration link for it if you're at the event. I'll put that in the video description as well. So sign up, come by, say hello, party with Trilio.
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking? If users watching this video, if they go through the steps, deploy TBK, have the management console up and running, they take a selfie with it, post it on LinkedIn, tag tag Trilio, and they put the video link underneath. I'll guarantee that and make sure that we send some swag to them as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you're following along, do that. Deploy TBK, make a backup, snap a photo, post it on LinkedIn, tag me, tag Trilio, throw in a link to the video if you want some extra credit, and you'll get a surprise. So I'll put all those details in the video description along with the other stuff. That's really nice, Prashanto. And I got to tell all of you who are watching, Trilio has really nice swag. I have some of it in the other room. It's really high quality stuff. Now, Prashanto, where can people go to join your community?
So we have a Slack workspace where we welcome users. Even if we have a free and a basic version of the software as well, which people can use and download. So whoever is using the product, we have a Slack workspace which is directly available on the support page that you're showing right now. You can just click the link; it'll make you join our Slack workspace, and then we can communicate directly. You can talk to me directly in case you have questions or thoughts and comments, ideas, whatever it may be. So that's our kind of intersection, or how we engage with the community out there.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up this epic return of CNCN, is there anything else that you would like to say?
I would say Trilio is definitely coming up with some cutting edge features. We have the most comprehensive ransomware solution. We are focusing on taking away the data gravity problem. So think about disaster recoveries and portabilities in a matter of seconds and minutes. Those are the things that we're working on, and if folks are interested, they should definitely reach out to us, ask us about what we're doing and how we're going to be doing that. Other than that, Adrian, as always, it's a pleasure being on Coffee with Cloud Native, and love talking about technology, love interfacing with you, and overall just love the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to seeing you at your booth later on today, in the future today. And of course, having you on the show again in the future. Thanks, and I'll see you later, Prashanto.
Thank you, Adrian.
Whew. Okay, so backups are the thing that you hope you never need. But when you do need them, you're going to be so grateful that you have them. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter how much it costs to maintain a backup solution. It pays for itself the first time that you do a restore. I can't tell you how much I wish I had deployed this before my NAS blew up. It's a powerful lesson. What we saw today is that TBK is an excellent solution for backing up stateful and stateless applications in Kubernetes, and that it's relatively easy to get started. There's some steps, but the documentation is excellent, and you can be up and running just by following along with this video. All you need is a Kubernetes cluster, a CSI driver with snapshot functionality, and a target that's S3, NFS, or in the future, Blob or Google Cloud Storage. I want to thank you so much for watching. I'm Adrian Goins, and until next time, stay caffeinated.